Hello, welcome to Issues and Ideas. I'm Chris DeBello.
Sir, Mr. President, about the latest inflation number which came out this morning. Could that be a
No, I love it. The numbers were great. You know what I really love? I love the inflation.
That was Donald Trump from this past week in the Oval Office reacting to the May Consumer Price Index number, the inflation rate, which came in at an annual rate of 4.2%. Help me make sense of this. Why would you, even by mistake, say, I love the inflation? No, listen again.
Are you concerned, Mr. President, about the latest inflation number which came out this morning? Could that be a
No, I love it. The numbers were great. You know what I really love? I love the inflation.
Is he just simple-mindedly looking at the number, saying, 4.2, that's almost double what it was the last time. Higher number, good. There's no rhyme or reason to saying something like that. I mean, how out of touch do you have to be, even if it was a mistake, to make a mistake like that? One more time.
Are you concerned, Mr. President, about the latest inflation number which came out this morning? Could that be a
No, I love it. The numbers were great. You know what I really love? I love the inflation.
I'm just helping the inevitable along here a bit because every Republican candidate is going to hear Donald Trump speak that sentence every waking moment, every sleeping moment, as well as every Democratic candidate's commercial is going to include that line. Or at least until Trump comes up with something that surpasses even that, and don't worry, he will. All right, let's take a more detailed look now at the May Consumer Price Index numbers, what they establish, and how they're impacting your life, certainly in more ways than many, especially in the White House, want to recognize. To do that, we welcome the Senior Managing Partner with Belite Capital, Gerson Gibbs. Thanks for being here today, Gerson.
Thank you for having me.
And to find out more about Belite Capital, it's Belite, Belite, capital.com. And, of course, we have that link over at our homepage. Just as a foundation, the CPI for it's called All Urban Consumers, CPI-U, jumped 0.5% on a seasonally adjusted basis in May. That leads to a overall increase of a inflation rate to 4.2%. Historically, Gerson, that's not a good number, not place to be in any point in time. But for an inflation rate, the highest we've seen in 3 years, that points out to just a lot more than just energy prices being a problem, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I think one of the bigger problems is what's happening over at the Strait of Hormuz and how that's impacting oil prices, which have a direct impact on energy prices, which have a direct impact on inflation. I think if that's removed from the picture, we pretty much have a steady inflation that's actually been cooling off. But because of those issues, I think that, everybody could understand, or that's what the current administration is arguing, that it's attributed to that and not actual inflation.
But the energy has tentacles that reach in. I mean, just for the easiest, I guess, analogy would be to make, if diesel fuel costs more and diesel trucks transport goods to stores or suppliers, whatever the case may be, therefore costs are going to go up, therefore leading to the higher inflation. Correct.
Energy prices rose about 3.9% in May. And, they accounted for more than 60% of the entire CPI increase. Gasoline jumped 7% in a single month. And it's up over 40% year over year. So, of course, we're going to see a direct impact on inflation. But as they mentioned, I think inflation has been holding steady since about 2025, late 2025.
And I think I'm going to put the report from the government up on our downloads page because there's a lot to go into and not enough time to do it here. But just if you look at the energy index, that increased 23.5% for the 12 months ending May, as well. And again, as I said with my analogy, because of that, the food index increased 3.1% over the last year. And I know that's a general number, but because you can look at specific things you buy, and the further down you drill, you will find greater increases in that 3.1%. But Gerson, it's also important to note, too, that as the inflation rate most recently now is at 4.2%, wage growth most recent number for that is only 3.4%. Doesn't sound like a big difference, but when you're scraping by and you get that gap of inflation versus what you got coming in, you got a problem as far as personal finance is concerned.
Absolutely. I think that this is why they're trying to resolve the issues surrounding Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, because it's having a direct ripple effect on everyone, and we don't have the necessary foundation just yet to kind of withstand this for a long amount of time. So even when I was looking today, there were conversations and negotiations going on, although we've heard this for many months, and then nothing's changed. There are negotiations, and I'm hoping that something could happen because it's beginning to have a ripple effect, like you mentioned, the inflation rate versus the wages, unemployment rates, and all of these things are just having a tremendous impact. And right now, I don't think the economy can hold up like this for too much longer.
It certainly was with necessities. Again, using the connection analogy, if you are a renter and your landlord has to pay less to pay more for taxes, for heating, for general supplies to keep the building or the house intact, your rent's not going to go down. It's odds are the next possible increase, no matter what the state limitations are, your rent is more likely to go up than down. Again, as a result of what we're seeing. And also, Gerson, it's important to recognize too, we've seen reports about I think it was Scott Bessent. He was boasting that, people are spending more. Well, yeah, it sounds great for an economy, but when that spending is credit card spending at 25% interest rates just for bare necessities, that's going to have it. Even when the inflation rate goes down, there's a long, painful hangover looming.
Oh, 100%, because spending is up, but credit card usage is also up. And one of the major things is that we want to see what this new Fed chair is going to do, right? And what is his approach versus the former Fed chair. So there's a lot of things that are stewing up and could possibly go in either direction. But as I mentioned before, I don't think it could stay this way too much longer.
That's everything I mentioned, too. I hate to be the grim reaper of finances here, but people are at an increasing rate are rating their 401ks and personal savings not to reap the benefits of their long, hard work of saving, but to pay the rent, to buy the food. And again, great when inflation goes back down, but that's not going to replace what people are pulling out of their savings or racking up in credit card debt.
Yeah, 100%. And, Americans are trying to find ways to cover the gaps. Again, this is a ripple effect. We saw it last year with regard to tariffs, and tariffs had a ripple effect. Now it's a oil issue, and that's having a ripple effect. As I mentioned, I think that, sometimes some things take a little bit of time to evolve and actually works in the favor of the economy, but I don't think that the just general public and this economy can withstand much longer with all of the changes in pricing and usage of money. Even taxes are having some impact on people's pockets. There's a lot of changes with regard to that. So I don't think that just average American will be able to afford to live in America much longer if there's not changes that are made.
So Gerson Gibbs, who is Senior Managing Partner with Belite Capital, BeliteCapital.com, their website, and you're listening to Issues and Ideas. If everything were to go as perfect as possible and some resolution in the Middle East could come about and the supply line would open, is there anything out of history, out of economic theory that would say that inflation rates drop quickly? I mean, how realistically can we expect inflation to adjust to a better comfort point around the 2% mark, which is a realistic goal, I think, but how easy is it to get it there?
Well, it's not going to be easy, just like negotiations haven't been easy. But I do believe if there is a perfect scenario and everything did work itself out, it would drop fairly quickly. I think that this new Fed chair takes a little bit of a hawkish approach, and he would begin to reduce. If he believes that the economy is in the right place to do so, he would begin to reduce fairly quickly. I think the former Fed chair, He did have reductions. However, the reductions were very small, incremental reductions, took a more conservative approach at reducing inflation rates. But I think that this new Fed chair, he would take a different approach. So I assume if I were to predict, we should see those numbers inching down into the 3s, into the 2s by sometime next year, best case scenario.
But then on the flip side, what's the consequence? What's the risk if you cut rates too fast and too big?
Instability, right? So I think that, again, I see into the middle, into the late of next year. I don't see it happening extremely quickly because, again, that could rattle the economy in just an inverse effect, right? So I believe that if it was to happen in a perfect scenario, those rates, you can see them into the fourth quarter of next year, possibly.
Because we also have to take into account all the aspects of the economy, whether it's energy, food, housing. Everyone has to feel comfortable that the storm is over before they start dropping what they could drop as far as retail is concerned. And that only happens when wholesale drops because prices drop. So it's, I know the phrase is, well, as soon as the war is over, it's going to drop like a rock. Well, a nice bumper sticker. But the reality of economics dictates a very different reality. Learn more about the services of Belite Capital, where Gerson is their senior managing partner at BeliteCapital.com. Gerson Gibbs, thanks so much for helping us understand the reality versus the politics speak, I guess I'll call it, of what the economy is all about. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'll give you the latest regarding the planned ICE detention center in Roxbury, New Jersey. Project Ninja and New Jersey Appleseed, they've sent a letter to the DHS Office of the Inspector General. That's the advisory board that audits the DHS purchases of warehouses for use as detention facilities. They outline a few legal violations and irregularities in the DHS purchase of the warehouse in Roxbury. Give you some of the info here. DHS appears to have had no legal representation. Reading here, the DHS does not appear to have been represented by any attorney in a transaction that cost taxpayers $129.3 million. Individuals signed closing documents on DHS's behalf, described himself as its legal representative, but doesn't have a law degree. DHS appears to have overpaid more than $67 million in the deal. That enriched Goldman Sachs. They paid $129.3 million for the warehouse that had an assessed value of $62.2 million. DHS and Goldman Sachs appear to have intentionally violated New Jersey law. Goldman Sachs as the seller, aided by DHS as the buyer, appears to have violated New Jersey law by failing to provide the required 1-month notice to the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection of the purchase of the warehouse. That's in violation in terms of a conservation easement. And the DHS neglected to perform and ignored findings from basic due diligence, revealing the facility cannot be used as intended. Other than that, everything is just fine. We'll see what the response to all this is. I'll keep you posted. If you're listening to us via your favorite podcast platform, make sure you follow and subscribe. This past week, the Social Security Administration released their annual report on the status of the much relied on retirement and disability program, and no, the news was not good, as the date of the fund insolvency moved even more soon than it had already been anticipated. So what's this mean for people receiving Social Security benefits? Is there anything to be done to extend rather than shorten the solvency of the program? Here to explore all this is the Senior Vice President and Senior Policy Director with the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, Marc Goldwein. How are you today, Marc?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me on.
Well, great to have you here to help people better understand, because they hear they see the headlines and the fear strikes, so they miss out on important details. And to see the report on Social Security by the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget and answers and solutions as well, crfb.org is their website. We have that link at our homepage as well. So I said the news was not good, Marc. How bad was the news in this latest report?
It's pretty bad. Look, people should be a little scared. Here's what the report says. Social Security is projected to run out of its reserves in 6 years, in 2032. And then Medicare is projected to run out of its reserves 6 months later in 2033. Now, that doesn't mean either program goes away. But what the law says is that when it has no reserves, that the benefits get cut to match the revenue. And for Social Security, that is a 22% benefit cut, abrupt, immediate, and probably across the board.
Now, as I said, the insolvency date continues to get closer and closer, as you said, now down to 6 years. It had been longer not too long ago, ironically. What's been the driving catalyst for this dark day getting closer?
So the insolvency date moved up a bit. They moved up 2 or 3 months because there's less revenue coming in from taxation of benefits from the one big beautiful bill. But the real reason that we've lost time is because we spent a year ignoring this issue, right? So last year we had 7 years, and then we waited a year. So big surprise, now we have 6 years. The problem is we've been doing this since the 80s. We've known this problem was coming. We've been talking about fixing it since the 90s, and yet here we are in the year 2026, and we're no closer, and if anything, further from fixing it than we were back then.
When the whole program was created by initiatives from then President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, didn't FDR even say that what we're doing is not a forever situation? At some point in the future, new ideas and new paths have to be taken, and it's just been completely, totally ignored?
Well, in fairness, I think that what he envisioned was the program was going to get bigger, and that is exactly what happened. It expanded to include survivors' benefits and spousal benefits and disability benefits, and to be larger and to be automatically indexed. So we have, in fact, followed through on his vision to expand the program. The problem is we haven't followed through on his vision to fully finance it. FDR always believed Social Security should be paid for internally. People should pay their own way. And right now, the revenue is way short of the benefits. And so either we need more taxes coming in, less benefits going out, or some combination. And frankly, it's hard for me to see any solution other than some combination.
For you listening, Social Security currently provides monthly benefits to around 71 million Americans, and that's for 43% of seniors, all or most of their personal income. So, again, like Marc said, there is a fear that's growing as far as the insolvency time gets closer and closer. In the past, has this happened, and how has it been addressed in the past to extend the solvency?
Yeah, so we've had 2 times in the past that we've approached insolvency, in 1977 and 1983. And both times in different ways, policymakers came together and they enacted a set of fixes. We raised the retirement age. We increased the amount of income subject to the cap. We changed the payroll tax. We brought more people onto the program. We adjusted the formula. Like, the solutions are out there. And I do also want to point out, you're right, there are so many people that really rely on Social Security, and a 22% benefit cut would be devastating. It would cut benefits by $500 a month, even in just today's dollars. But there's a whole other set of people that don't even really rely on their Social Security at all. The Social Security benefits are now $100,000 for the very richest couples. And so there's opportunities, I think, to slow the benefit growth for seniors that have tens of millions of dollars in assets in order to preserve it for those that really are relying on the program.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like an obvious observation. If someone is sitting on savings or if life really worked out for them and they have assets of 7, 8, 9 figures, why do they need Social Security?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair question. Now, we've proposed something that doesn't actually take away their Social Security. All it says is your Social Security benefits can't go over, for a couple, $100,000 a year. So even if you have tens of millions, we're still saying you can collect $100,000, just maybe not $110,000. I think it's a pretty modest proposal, and it wouldn't fix Social Security on its own, but it would help make some significant leeway.
And you mentioned, too, that the plan was that you pay in and take out what you pay in like you would with a bank account or a checking account, but just because of the way the program has grown and the finances have all but collapsed, that idea is long past, and I don't think we'd ever get back to that ratio, would we?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is people have been getting out more than they put in on average. It was never supposed to be like a savings account that you get what you put back in. But there was this idea that you paying in sort of bought you the ticket to be able to get benefits. The problem is those benefits have been larger than the payments. And the scheme is falling apart because there's such a large gap. And so either people are going to pay more, they're going to have to get less, Or there's one scary option, which is the federal government may say it's too hard to change Social Security. We're just going to borrow. We're just going to borrow another $800 trillion over the next 75 years. That would put the country into a debt crisis.
There's various programs under the umbrella of Social Security, but they're separate funds. Is there a way would it be prudent to combine the funds, and would that prolong the solvency?
Right. So the retirement fund runs out in 2032. There's a separate disability fund. That fund is healthy. And we could take some money from the disability fund, put it to the retirement fund. That would buy us about a year and a half. So that could get us to 2034. That might make sense as we're sort of buying time to phase in changes, but it's not a permanent solution. It's a kick the can that literally gets you, from one presidential administration to the next. It doesn't get you much further than that.
When you say to raise taxes to create revenue for the program, what kind of tax increase would be ballpark be talking about?
So if we were to do this entirely from the payroll tax rate, we'd ultimately have to increase that rate by 50%. So right now, the payroll tax rate for Social Security is 12.4%. You pay half, your employer pays half. We'd have to gradually increase it to about 19%, 18 or 19%. So this is a massive increase. Now, we could do less of that if we solve some of the problem by raising that cap, that $185,000 cap on income subject to the wage cap. But that's not going to solve the whole problem either. That, over the long run, solves maybe a quarter of the problem. And we could also look at things like subjecting some kinds of fringe benefits to the tax. So we don't have to do it all with the rate increase, but to solve this all on the tax side, over time, we're talking about a very large tax increase.
You present, and again, over at your website, crfb.org, you present detailed paths to repair what's already broken. Problem is, we have the midterms looming, and if the party who is in charge remains in charge, we see program cuts as their idea. As far as what's left to be cut other than again money to the beneficiaries.
Well, look, Social Security benefits not only are large for those rich beneficiaries, but they actually continue to grow pretty rapidly over time. Over the next 75 years, average real benefits, meaning adjusted for inflation, are projected to triple. And so there is room to save money by just slowing the growth. But we have 6 years until insolvency, and we're not going to make huge changes to current beneficiaries, which means there really is no option other than having tax revenue. You can't save money from new beneficiaries fast enough. And frankly, I don't think you can raise taxes high enough, which is why I say we're going to need some kind of combination of more taxes and less benefits. But it doesn't have to be less benefits than today. It just has to be less benefits than projected in the future.
I know this is outside your realm, but one of the other contributing facts to the solvency of Social Security is the fact that undocumented immigrants, they can't, at least legally, receive benefits from Social Security, but when they're working on the books, they pay into Social Security. So theoretically, if, as so many people want to do, you remove that demographic from the contributing population, that would just magnify the problem.
That's right. I mean, one of the funny things, maybe not funny, but there's some people that think you can fix Social Security by cutting fraud. It turns out fraud of collecting benefits is actually very low. The biggest source of fraud in Social Security is people that are illegally paying into the program, right? And so it's illegal, undocumented, whatever you want to call it, immigrants that are actually helping the program by paying in and not getting benefits back. And so the recent, strengthening of immigration rules and administration actually has worsened Social Security's trust fund.
Well, as I said, we have the midterm elections coming up, and hopefully for you listening, this will be a key part of what you're asking and listening from the candidates when they start talking about things that matter to you. We have the Social Security report over at our downloads page. If you don't do it on a full stomach, trust me, but check that out because a lot of graphs and a lot of information. And to find some paths to solutions, that's what the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget is providing at crfb.org. He is their Senior Vice President and Senior Policy Director, Marc Goldwein. Thanks so much for being here today and helping us better understand the urgency of finding a solution to a very serious problem. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I know what I said there toward the end of that segment is going to make some people's heads explode, so let me back it up. This is all from a variety of sources, including the Center for Immigration Studies, National Immigration Forum, American Immigration Council. An estimated 61% of households headed by undocumented immigrants get at least one form of public benefit, compared to 37% of households headed by a U.S.-born citizen. However, only 20% of undocumented individual heads of household personally receive benefits. Vast majority of these benefits come to other members of their households, most typically their U.S.-born children who are citizens and fully eligible for public assistance from birth. Unless the Supreme Court at the end of the month says something else about the 14th Amendment, that is carved in stone, so deal with that. Data from the Center for Immigration Studies and the Survey of Income and Program Participation, they bring to light a major distinction between personal use and household use. Let's get into this one here. Household use, 60.7%, means about 61% of undocumented headed households utilize at least one program. For households with children, that number goes up to 84.6%. Now, when it comes to individual use, only 1 in 5 undocumented household heads personally receive benefits. 41% difference represents legally eligible family members, primarily, as I said, U.S.-born citizen children living in these households. Big question for many people is, what benefits can undocumented immigrants legally receive? By federal law, this is under the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act. Undocumented immigrants are categorized as not qualified aliens or barred from standard programs like SNAP, food stamps, regular Medicaid, temporary assistance for needy families, supplemental security income, but they can legally receive specific emergency, state-level, or child-focused benefits. For example, emergency Medicaid, covering life-threatening medical events, childbirth expenses. While 39% of undocumented households have a member on Medicaid, only 1% of undocumented household heads personally use it. And that's only for emergencies. When it comes to the child nutrition programs, again, undocumented children, pregnant, postpartum women qualify directly for the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, the WIC program, and either free or reduced price school lunches. The Earned Income Tax Credit, an estimated several million undocumented immigrants hold temporary work authorizations, like DACA, temporary protected status. So that grants them a Social Security number to legally claim the Earned Income Tax Credit if they pay income taxes. When it comes to state-funded programs, roughly 14 states use their own local funds to provide health care coverage to undocumented children, and other states offer limited health care to adults. Now let's turn to the Cato Institute, who did a huge 30-year study. It's called Immigrants' Recent Effects on Government Budgets, 1994 to 2023. And what it reveals is that immigrants generated a cumulative net fiscal surplus of $14.5 trillion for the U.S. government budgets. Let me repeat that. Immigrants generated a cumulative net fiscal surplus of $14.5 trillion for U.S. government budgets. The analysis evaluated things like federal, state, local data, and came to the conclusion that immigrants consistently paid more in taxes than they consumed in benefits every single year during that 30-year span, 1994-2023. Let's drill in a little deeper here. As far as deficit reduction, immigrants cut overall U.S. budget deficits by roughly 1/3 between 1994 and 2023, providing an independent fiscal savings of $878 billion in 2023 alone. Without the tax contributions of immigrants, total U.S. public debt would have surpassed 205% of gross domestic product, which would be nearly double its actual 2023 level. Immigrants generated about 17% more in taxes per capita, roughly $100,000 more per person, than native-born Americans over the 30-year time frame. In 2023 alone, immigrants contributed $1.3 trillion in total taxes, while receiving, again through the means I talked about earlier, $761 billion in governmental benefits, and immigrants produced a $6.6 trillion surplus at the state and local levels because they statistically consume less in public education, government pensions, and policing compared to U.S.-born citizens. So when you hear someone state something that your knee-jerk reaction compels you to push back against, try informing yourself just a little bit, because it might lead you to something known as understanding the truth.
It's hard to find. I'm just caught up in the rain. I hold my eyes and everything I didn't give up before you. When I met you, something changed and I wake up, I feel okay. Now that I got something to lose, something to lose.
That's the song Something to Lose being performed by my next guest, as well she should, because along with being the song singer, she wrote it. She devoted herself to her music as a goal for her life starting out at the age of 8, but as everyone who makes that decision quickly finds out, that devotion will be tested by a whole lot of challenges. The road just became a lot more clear for her, thanks to her winning the recent Amplify Your Ambitions music competition, which I believe she is a great living example of the name of that competition. Originally from East Brunswick, New Jersey, she's gone from playing for change in the New York City subway to an online music download career with the downloads in the hundreds of thousands, saw one for even over 1 million. What's next for her? Well, let's find out by saying hello to Karen Hardy. How are you today, Karen?
Hey, how are you? That was such a good intro. Thank you.
Well, you got good stuff, and you can check out Karen's music, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Music. We've got links on our homepage as well because, you know, for those individual pages, the links are obscenely long, so trying to tell you them, it's just easier to show you where they are. I mean, we played a little piece of Something to Lose, but talk about your music. What's your sound? What are you going for?
I would say my sound is like pop R&B, or like pop soul. That's kind of always what I've said. It's definitely like I am a pop girl for sure. But I, like you said, I mean, you used the word soulful, like when you were listening to my music. So I definitely like soulful, some R&B influence, a lot of like throwback 90s influence. Yeah. So the short answer is like pop R&B.
I'm glad you say influence because so many times I hear interviews or I see reviews. So, you know, someone says they sound like somebody. You know, I'm going to go old school here, and because it's limiting. Because if someone said, "Well, that person he sounds like Frank Sinatra," okay, I'm going to go download his stuff. I'll go see him. Oh yeah, sounds just like Sinatra. But then they'll go back and listen to Sinatra. So trying to be presented as sounding like someone, that's just going to limit your longevity. And I was reading some background about you. As you quickly learned, it's very tough to go from being one of many to being one. How do you think you've done that?
Yeah, I think you have to like find multiple things that set you apart. And I mean, it's kind of been the journey of my music career, like figuring out what exactly it is that sets me apart. And I think I'm leaning more into, obviously, like I do think my voice is like, that is Karen. But on top of that, like my story is very unique. And I'm like just starting to lean into that. Also, like everyone's personality is so unique. So I'm trying less to be like what I'm expected to be like and more just like authentically myself. So that's kind of how I'm figuring out exactly what sets Karen Hardy apart. But yeah.
And the way you do things too, I mean, you're telling heart stories from your life and experience. Do you ever hear back from people saying, I was going to listen to a song that I thought was about you, but oh my God, it's about me?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting that. Yeah, I get a lot of DMs. I mean, I've talked a lot about like depression online and mental health and stuff like that. And I get a lot of people reaching out. Even when I post about, like, I have this one song about being cheated on, and I got a lot of girls reaching out being like, this is exactly what happened to me. Yeah, those are the best messages to get.
From Karen Hardy, who is stepping forward through winning the Amplify Your Ambitions competition. You can check out her great music in pretty much every place you should be checking out great music. Spotify, Apple. You can follow her on Instagram. You're listening to Issues and Ideas. You mentioned about, and I referenced it in the introduction too, about you have a path, but then you always find out there's going to be a lot of challenges along the way. And you had a couple of rough spots there. Why did you not give up? What got you back on track?
I just think it's like a moth to a flame. I think a lot of musicians have that feeling where it's like they just cannot stop. But this is like, for me, this has been my dream literally since I was like 7 years old. Like, there was nothing else that I ever wanted for my life. I just wanted to be a singer. And every time I would take a step back from music, I wouldn't even take a big step back, but like detach myself a little bit, something would pull me back in. And I can say like now I'm at a very, like, I'm just at a great spot with music where it's like I really think that I'm doing it fully for the love of music and not, I mean, of course I want to have this like big career, but at the end of the day, like it's my love of music that's driving me and not really for anything else. So I think it's just like how much I love it. I wish I didn't sometimes, but
but it's the difference of doing art for the art before the benefits, as opposed to doing art for the benefits first.
Yeah, I think we all get lost somewhere along the way. Like, I think most musicians love it when they're, you know, a kid, they really authentically love it. But then, of course, like, ego stuff gets in the way. But, yeah, you just have to figure out how to, like, push past the ego and, like, get back to why you really started doing it in the first place.
You've been doing your music career for quite some time before the Amplify Your Ambitions music contest came along. How much of what you learned on the way to that point in your life helped you succeed the way you did in the competition?
I've been thinking about that a lot, actually, because I don't think if I had this opportunity like 5-10 years ago, I don't think I would have been able to show up the way I did. Like, obviously I would have like worked really hard to get it, but I think like I went into the contest, I really wanted it. I really wanted to win the $200,000, obviously, that SoFi was offering, but it didn't feel like the end of the world if I didn't get it. Like, I was like, okay, I'm still going to pursue music. Like, I'm still going to find a way to make this work. This obviously would make things a lot easier and a lot more possible. But I think, yeah, just like knowing that it wasn't going to be the end of my career if I didn't get it, that was a big part. Then also just like my confidence on stage and like everything from that my songwriting has gotten better to my performing on stage to my singing. Like, it's just, yeah, it all kind of lined up together.
You know, it's like with self-publishing books, doing your own thing for music, it ain't cheap, as they say, and I have no doubt $200,000 is going to move you forward quite a few more squares faster than you were probably planning on.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. This is $200,000 is life-changing. Yeah, but I think you just have to like tell yourself like, okay, I'm going to figure out either way. But now it's like a huge, huge weight off my shoulders, and on top of that, it's just like I can dream bigger now. I can like see the full vision and actually make it happen.
Do you plan on staying, I guess, your own boss, or are you looking for to get signed? What are your plans as far as that's concerned?
Not looking to get signed yet, but I definitely want people on my team. So I think the next step is like for sure management of some sort, just someone to bounce ideas off of and help me push it forward. I'm good at the music part, but like the marketing stuff, that's not my expertise. So that's another thing. Like, this money is going to allow me to like bring more people on who are actually good at their area, you know?
Well, you're definitely worthy of being found by more people than you already have, which is a spectacular number as a DIY project, I guess we can call it. And, certainly talk about your family, because you have two older brothers with disabilities. How much did that help in the way that your communication skills came about for your music?
Yeah, I'm like obsessed with my family, and especially my brothers. Like, we're all just really close. And we were growing up like in these environments. Like, our community was kind of like my brother's friends and stuff like that. And I realized really quickly that music was a universal language, kind of, like, even for someone who maybe can't get their words out as easily. It's like just everyone gravitates towards music and finds some type of relief in it. And then I realized that it just like that, that just became something that was more and more aware, like I became more and more aware of as I got older. And so now I work within the like autism community with adults that are super musically inclined, and it just kind of solidified like music is a language. It is fully, it's like the one thing that I think we all feel comforted by, which is just this incredible thing. So, yeah, that's my long-winded answer for that.
And very, very telling answer, too, and I think very, very instructive for anyone, for you listening. If you want great music, definitely listen to Karen's stuff. And, again, we had the links for her music at Spotify and Apple over at our homepage. And find out more about her story, too, over at her Instagram page. And if you just do a Google search of Karen Hardy, because Karen's very open about what she did, the path she took, what she overcame, both with herself and her chosen field. And I think you get some very valuable lessons for whatever it is that you have a passion for or you have a goal for in your life as well. Follow Karen over at Instagram. And again, check out her music, because it'll be a good thing that you did and you want to share it as well. Karen, pleasure meeting you. Pleasure learning more about your music and you. And thanks so much for being here today. All the best.
You too. Thank you so much for having me.
Today is Flag Day. Flag Day commemorates the Continental Congress's official adoption of the Stars and Stripes as the American flag. That was in 1777. Before the familiar American flag design came about, colonial troops fought under a variety of regional banners. Yellow Gadsden flag, featuring the image of a snake and the motto, "Don't tread on me." That might be the most familiar of them all. As I said, Second Continental Congress passed the first flag resolution on this day in 1777, which simply stated, resolved that the flag of the 13 United States be 13 stripes, alternate red and white, that the Union be 13 stars, white in the blue field, representing a new constellation. Yep, that was it. Now, while most credit Betsy Ross with sewing the very first American flag, there is strong evidence that points to Francis Hopkinson, who was a signer of the Declaration of Independence, as the actual designer of the Stars and Stripes. Over a century, the June 14th anniversary of the creation of the American flag was basically really not celebrated very much at all. Local celebrations did start during the Civil War. Around 1861, the momentum generated by schools, patriotic organizations, that eventually pushed the holiday into federal recognition. President Wilson, in 1916, issued a presidential proclamation that officially established June 14th as Flag Day across the nation. Then President Harry S. Truman, 1949, signed an act of Congress that permanently codified June 14th as National Flag Day and requested that future presidents issue an annual proclamation for its observance. The American flag is a symbol which represents all that is a part of the foundation of America. When we stand before it with our hand over our heart, we do it to show respect for what the American flag represents. We're not looking at the American flag as an idol, because to do so would certainly run counter to everything that the American flag stands for, which is established by, I think, one of the most important sections of the Declaration of Independence. Reading here, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bonds which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. God says much about idolatry, and none of his word encourages it. God's direct and precise instructions come to us from Exodus chapter 20, verses 3 through 5. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them. Galatians chapter 4, verse 8 teaches us that idolatry does not bring us to any kind of freedom that God offers to us. It's a path really to the exact opposite. But then indeed, when you did not know God, you served those which by nature are not gods. Idolatry does not bring us to happiness either. Here's what we read in Jonah chapter 2, verse 8. Those who regard worthless idols forsake their own mercy. Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 writes a great deal about idolatry. One of his many important points helps us realize that while idolatry isn't illegal when it comes to earthly law, it's not what we believe it to be for us. Reading here from verse 23, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but not all things edify. When you fully understand what idolatry keeps company with, that truth, I think, will compel you to quickly turn away from it. This lesson is found in Colossians chapter 3, verse 5. Therefore put to death your members which are on the earth, fornication, uncleanness, passion, evil desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry. Now, that doesn't make God's truth crystal clear to you. Let me take you to Galatians chapter 5, verses 19 through 21. Now the works of the flesh are evident, which are adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lewdness, idolatry, sorcery, hatred, contentions, jealousies, outbursts of wrath, selfish ambitions, dissensions, heresies, envy, murders, drunkenness, revelries, and the like, of which I tell you beforehand, just as I also told you in time past, that those who practice such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. All of what I've just placed before you is why we don't treat the American flag with idolatry. We treat it with respect and reverence. We are not bowing before an idol. We're pledging to do all that we can to uphold and protect all that the American flag stands for. So you'll better understand what those ideals are. Here's comedian Red Skelton, who on his TV show on January 14th, 1969, stood before his audience and the American people to share this.
Well, I remember a teacher that I had. Now, I went through the 7th grade. I went to the 7th grade. I left home when I was 10 years old because I was hungry. And I used to, this is true. I work in the summer and I go to school in the winter. But I had this one teacher. He was the principal of the Harrison School in Vincennes, Indiana. To me, this was the greatest teacher, a real sage of my time, anyhow. He had such wisdom. And we were all reciting the Pledge of Allegiance one day. And he walked over, this little old teacher, Mr. Laswell was his name. Mr. Laswell, he says, he says, I've been listening to you boys and girls recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester, and it seems as though it's becoming monotonous to you. If I may I recite it and try to explain to you the meaning of each word. I, me, an individual, a committee of one, pledge, dedicate all of my worldly goods to give without self-pity, allegiance, my love and my devotion to the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect, because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts freedom is everybody's job. United. That means that we have all come together. States, individual communities that have united into 48 great states, 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose, all divided with imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common purpose, and that's love for country. And to the republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people, and it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people, for which it stands. One nation, meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life without threats, fear, or some sort of retaliation. And justice, the principle or qualities of dealing fairly with others. For all, which means, boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. And now, boys and girls, let me hear you recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance: under God. Wouldn't it be a pity if someone said that is a prayer and that would be eliminated from schools too?
Always glad to have you along for a little travel into the truth. Look forward to being with you right here this time next week for our next edition of Issues and Ideas.